Okay, before I get started on this turn signal switch replacement, I wanted to show you some of the symptoms that lead me to believe that there is a problem with the turn signal switch. The most obvious one is the way this turn signal handle feels. I mean, there's just no detent to it, and it's just like it's broken inside there. That's what I believe. And the other thing is that there's a lot of play on this steering wheel, and that is an indication that there's a problem with this top bearing. I don't know if you can see the ball bearings in there, but this is the top bearing for this steering shaft. Another thing that looks pretty suspicious is the way this cup is turning. That's not normal, shouldn't do that. And when I pulled on that horn button, the whole thing came off. The cup is supposed to be retained in there with some screws, and there's supposed to be some other parts underneath here that allow the horn to push down and then retract like oil can action. There's also no, that washer is gone, and there's no horn contact ring. There's supposed to be a horn contact ring that goes through that larger hole in there. So we're gonna have to dig through our parts and find out what's going on with that. But this is the only thing that holds on the horn button, is this rubber retainer. So that also doesn't look good. That's the yeah, that's the steering wheel rocking on the shaft itself. So I don't know if that's a bad steering wheel. Hopefully it's not a bad shaft, because if that shaft is the issue, then the only way to completely repair that is to replace the manual steering gearbox. This shaft is part of the manual steering gearbox. It goes all the way down into the center of the gearbox. So if that part is damaged, if the splines are beyond repair, or these threads are beyond repair, then the only correct replacement is taking out the manual steering gearbox and replacing it with another, which is problematic because these are one-off. There's no interchange for these manual steering gearboxes. I have a few that I've had remanufactured, and they're a lot more difficult to replace than just a turn signal switch. So I believe that besides the wear of time on the gearbox itself, the only other reason that you'd want to replace this shaft or this manual steering gearbox is if this top part, the splines or these threads, became damaged beyond repair. So just take a little bit of care and make sure that you don't have to make bigger problems for yourself. So some of the tools that I am going to be using, one of them is this bolt grip puller set. This is the style that is a good puller for steering wheels and harmonic balancers, and it's got the slots there for the bolts that fit into the steering wheel, and then the center part will accept the shaft that you tighten down. So that's about a 7/8 and then 9/16 on the bolts typically. And the other thing you're going to need is a 3/4 inch wrench for that center bolt, and a screwdriver for the rest of the stuff. So we're going to take this apart and see what parts we are going to be having to shop for. Now, some of these horn guts are readily available through some of the Classic Industries and some of these other truck shops, because this part is pretty much a mirror image of 1965 C10 truck horn guts. So they still have all that stuff, but it's a little bit high priced. And ideally, I don't want to be waiting for a couple of weeks or whatever it takes to get those parts here. So we're going to pull the steering wheel off and make a list of parts that we need for this. So we'll put it on time lapse and stop it every now and then for a little update. All right, so that didn't go quite as planned. Turned out we didn't need the puller to pull that off. It was so loose. I started off by running a bolt through the two holes to make sure that they were nice and cleaned up, and they weren't. Nothing seemed to want to go in there really good, so I tried to run a tap in there, and even that, see, it didn't seem to want to go. Anyway, the size of this is supposed to be 5/16 24, and I believe what happened is somebody ran a 5/16 18 bolt through there and caused some problem. So we're gonna chase those threads so that the next guy that pulls it off, which will probably be me, possibly, won't have the same kind of problem. So this, besides the problem with the steering wheel threads being worn or abused or whatever, we've got this shaft here. This is not even a regulation shaft from, a turn signal lever. This is a made-up one, is what it looks like to me. Or else somebody has cut and fit an old one. I don't know. But yeah, that looks kind of homemade. Got some grind marks on there, so you can see that. So there's been some creative work done on this. But anything in a pinch, right? So we're gonna have to try to hook Frank up with another lever. So we'll see what other kind of issues we have in here. A lot of mismatched screws. I don't know. We will see what we can salvage from this deal. I don't know how many parts we're gonna have to pull out of the stash. But anyway, well, we're gonna pull the wiring off, disconnect this bottom strap, pull the wires through there, and then get these turn signal switch out, pull the cup off. There's the turn signal, or there's the horn button. Anyway, okay, back to time lapse we go.